What I learned a long time ago is the crack is where the light comes through. And I know at times when we struggle most, the times that seem most difficult, really calls us to search deep and find that inner knowing that life is good and God is always there. I'm sure many of us right now do feel broken, and we're asking, how do we heal? How do we put things together? When all around us there's problems and things we don't know how to handle. Well, a wise soul once said, often the questions are complicated, but the answer is simple. And that beautiful philosopher was Dr. Seuss. We know that the answer is always to get in touch with that greater presence. You know, we're all on this pathway, this road of experience. We all come from the same DNA, spiritual energy, expressing here as unique individuals. We know there's only one God with all these different expressions and forms of which we are one. And we're on a path of experience to learn who we are, to find our specific place, you know, our little calling, the way we fit in this beautiful Indra's net, our little jewel, and how we're going to shine. We have to find that by our inward journey that is expressed in our outward experiences. Now, since we're all children of God, what do we know about children? Well, children learn at different rates and speed, right? Some kids choose a path that seems really difficult. Lots of mistakes, lots of problems, lots of ins and outs and goods and bads. But we're all going to the same place. Some quicker learners and find that oneness much faster. But there is no right and perfect road. There's only the perfect road for each and every one of us. Healing takes time. And tomorrow is Martin Luther King Day. And it's a time when we celebrate Martin Luther King and his journey and the gifts he gave our world. He hangs here on our wall of the giants whose shoulders we stand upon. You know, he was born in January 15th, 1929, and he died on April 4th, 1968. 39 short but potent years. His life mattered. He lived big, but all of our lives matter. He's known for his commitment to the civil rights movement. He was an American Baptist minister, but he's also known for his nonviolent approach to his protests and getting the word out. He got the Nobel Peace Prize for his nonviolent movement, his nonviolence in the civil rights movement. He stood on giant shoulders too. He learned this nonviolence from Jesus. His teaching, love one another, love everyone, turn the other cheek. He learned that. He also learned it from another beautiful man. We've read a lot of his work. I know Dr. Roger Julien loves him also. Dr. Howard Thurman, who was also a Baptist minister, 30 years the senior of Martin Luther King. But Howard Thurman went to India and met Gandhi. And Thurman was very involved in the civil rights movement also. And he loved Gandhi's consciousness of nonviolence. And he brought it back. And he shared that with Dr. Martin Luther King, who used that nonviolence as his major consciousness in his approach to life. He said, he wrote an article called Suffering and Faith. And he said, suffering, my personal suffering, has guided so much of my thinking and shaped the way I approach life. He said, you know, my work in freedom, the freedom movement and freeing my people has led me through so much suffering. For years, he said, I haven't known a day of peace. He said, I've been arrested 5 times and been put in Alabama jails. My family and I have had daily death threats. My house has been bombed twice. He said, I face the storm of persecution practically daily. And he said, there are times when I want to step away, when I want to give up the work I'm doing so I can find some peace and quiet. Don't we feel like that? How can we get away? How can we get away so we can find some peace and quiet? Well, the problem is we are away, most of us, most of the time. But how do we find that internally? He said the way I did it is I realized that in this time of suffering, I can turn to an inner resolve, an inner place where I find strength that I didn't even know I had. It makes my determination stronger to do God's work in a bigger way. I have a choice of using this suffering to react in bitterness and anger and hatred, or I can transform those feelings of burdens and suffering into creative energy. He gave a talk, Martin Luther King gave a talk, and I'm not sure the date of this talk. On March 25th, 1965, he gave a talk in Montgomery, Alabama. And it was at the conclusion of the march, the Selma March, where 2,000 people, clergymen, laymen, people from all races and faiths, marched from Selma, it was 54 miles, to Montgomery, to the capital, to give a speech. He gave a speech there to 25,000 people, and it was called Our God is Marching On. Just the title of that, to know that no matter what's going on in our world, this presence of goodness is always at work, moving us forward to find something greater, find a better idea, a better way of doing things. And in this talk, he says, the battle is in our hands, and I think that's appropriate for all of us. We get to decide how to show up right now. I am so thankful for our community and our teaching, where we truly understand that we're all unique individuals on a pathway home to God, to goodness. I mean, our goal, where we're going for everybody, is always God. There's nothing else. Some of us just we all take different paths. Some of us take longer, but that's our goal. We're always going there. And he said the battle is in our hands, and it's not an easy road. There's not a broad highway we all travel on to get to that road. We all have our unique journey, but we have to keep moving on. You know, Martin Luther King did such great work, but for us, there's more work to do. And if we look at it, if we look at life, you know, and Ernest Holmes said, all problems come from our ignorance. We're ignorant, and it's just because we're looking at the outer world, the physical world, to get our answers instead of the inner world. This is where we connect with God and goodness and love. And he said, Ernest Holmes says, because we're ignorant to the higher laws, the spiritual laws. We're all spiritual beings, but we start using physical laws. And then in our ignorance, we use our anger and our upset and our hatred, which there really is no room for. And we can react in ways that aren't for the highest good of all. And he said, keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye, knowing that my personal experience right now, I aim, which we're not going to get there yet because we're not all evolved yet. We'll all arrive at our oneness, still unique individuals, but at our oneness with God, we're still on that journey. But so we can say, you know, I aim for my actions and experiences to be positive and for the good of all. That's what I aim for. That's my goal. I don't always get there, but I'm aware when I'm not there. That's what we need to do, because this ignorance keeps us stuck in separation, which is definitely, we feel separated when we're looking at this physical world and we look at the differences that we all have and we go, oh, that's wrong, that's not right. When actuality, we are the same in our hearts and our minds are growing. When we're ignorant, we use this power of our mind negatively. We misuse our creative expression not for the highest good. So we need to remember, ask the question, where am I separated from my highest good? Where am I acting out of alignment? Where am I pointing the finger when 3 are looking back at me? Where do I need to change, and what do I need to do to get in alignment with that good? You know, being children of God, God's always there for us. Jesus loved to speak in parables, and the parable of the prodigal son was his favorite, and that's definitely a journey of experience by the youngest son. We know that story. He went off, he was a naughty boy. He really was. He went off and did all sorts of naughty things, and he spent all his dad's money, and he ended up eating with the pigs. But he remembered, he had that awakening that Martin Luther King talked about, that inner determination. Oh yeah, I remember where I'm going, to my Father's house. But he tells another story, another parable. When we think it's too late for some people, it's never too late. It's never too late to wake up to a greater good, a greater truth, a greater understanding, never. And Jesus told this story. He said, the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who has fields to work. And he goes out to get some laborers to work in his vineyard. And he goes very early in the morning and he sees the people there. And he said, would you like to work today in my vineyard? And they said, yes. And they agreed on a fair wage. And they went in bright and early and started working there. Well, the owner went out again at 9 o'clock, and there were still more people there idle. And he said, hey, do you want to work? Come on. I'll pay you what's fair and right. And went in and started working in the vineyard. And he went out again at 12 and 3, and he still found people ready to work. And he sent them in and said he'd pay them a fair wage. And then at 5 o'clock, just before, probably an hour before it got dark, he went out and there were still people waiting. And he said, why are you idle here? Why aren't you working? And the laborers said, because nobody has asked us yet. We're here waiting to work, but nobody's asked us. He said, come on in. So they all went and they did their work. And when it got evening time and it was dark, he told his manager, bring them all in and pay them, but start with the last first. I want you to pay everybody, but start with the last ones first. And he paid them the usual wage. And so the ones at the beginning and the first were thinking, oh my God, we're going to get paid really well because we were here first, right? And so the manager goes on and pays everybody the same. And the first people were like, oh my God, the first laborers, what? Say what? Why am I getting the same wage? I've been here all day in the sweltering sun and I'm boiling hot. Why do I get the same? And the manager said, well, actually it was the owner, said, friend, you shouldn't be grumbling. We agreed on our wage and I'm giving it to you. You shouldn't be angry. You worked a good day's work and you got a fair wage. Are you angry with me because I'm generous and I give to all alike? And then I'm just adding a little thing. That's your problem, not mine. Generous. The spiritual world is very different than the physical world. Spiritual world, everybody is the same. Everybody gets the same deal. God's message is, I'm here for you whenever you're ready to come. I'm here for you with all the gifts you could ever imagine. I'm here when you're ready to receive. And so that's our message. We get to receive our gifts whenever we're ready. So how do we make that journey to a higher, transcendent spiritual awareness that keeps us joyful and happy and available? We have to have a bigger vision. We have to know that peace is possible. We have to keep that opening, that good is always present no matter what we see in the physical realm. We've got to keep that. And that we have the power to change our minds all the time. So even if you have your mask on, you can just kind of softly say this under your mask, or if you're at home. Right now, because I know with all that's going on with our pandemic, the violence that we hear, violence we saw in our state capitol, the things that are going on that we hear in the world, that right now I reclaim my power. I reclaim my power to live intentionally, which means we're not living reactively. And when we are living reactively, we catch ourselves. Oops, I'm reacting to that instead of remembering there's something to know here, there's something to learn here, I need to transcend this. So I reclaim my power, I live intentionally, and this is even in difficult and confusing times. And if all you remember is I reclaim my power, that's all you need to know. Because we can get disempowered by buying into the herd mentality. We can get disempowered when we think there's something else except that connection to God that's going to lead us through all of this that we're in right now. We need to know how much is for us. You know, my dear friend Rumi again said, there are hundreds of religious books, yet they're all one chapter. There are 100 different holy places, yet only one altar. Everything leads back to the one house. And that's what we need to remember, that we're all on these different paths of experience. And we need to be supporting each other in our journey and where we are, helping and supporting. You know, it's, I love Jean Houston, and she was a mentor to me in so many ways, really a leader in human potentiality. But there's one word that she loves to use that's very simple, but it's a word that she likes, and it reminded me when I read it, we are children of God, and she said, is it any wonder that so many of the great geniuses and innovators are those who have kept their childlike wonder? You have to keep that wonder, to keep yourself creative and new and fresh, that childlike wonder alive in them. Wonder has a buoyant, exhilarating, crest of the wave effect. And this is what I really like. I mean, I like all that, but I love this part. It's all at once an expectancy of fulfillment and the anticipation of more to come. It's keeping that inside of you. Oh, I feel good. I feel joyful. I feel fulfilled right now in this moment, simply because I'm breathing, I'm alive, I had something good for breakfast. Whatever it is, some little thing that keeps you fulfilled in the moment, or it's a big thing, whatever it is, but with also the expectancy of something more, something that is yet to come. For all of us, every moment we can be thinking that. So, okay, we've got all of that down so far. How do we know when we have arrived at this place of oneness, no separation? How do we know if we're there? Well, Ernest Holmes says, a truly evolved soul judges no one. I'm really sorry about that, because none of us are there yet. I know I'm not. We're not there yet, but we're working on it, and that's all that counts. We're working on it. We know when we know, and we have a right to our own feelings, our own choices. That's okay. But when he means judging, he means the painful, hurtful things that go on. We know we're truly evolved when we judge no one. And when we focus mostly on peace. I told you that vision, we need to know that peace is possible. If we're not knowing that right now, we're never going to be able to bless every path. We're never going to be able to feel that inside and know. In Proverbs it says, speaking of Lady Wisdom, her ways are ways of pleasantness. Remember I said no harm to ourselves or anyone else. Pleasantness. Her ways are of pleasantness, and her path is of peace. Now, how do we get on a road of peace? What do we do to get there? Our road of peace is always the energy of love. God is love. That's the definition. That is where we need to focus our attention. Ernest Holmes said, if anything gets you off path, focus on love, because you can't be in love and separated at the same time. You can't be that. You're in that consciousness of unification. So I'm going to close today, again, going back to Martin Luther King. And if we can all spend some time just to honor those shoulders we stand upon. A man with such courage, lived truly by spirit, and was guided through some very rough times. And here's what he says. Let's speed up that day when all of God's children, black and white, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. I want you to hold those words as I simply invite you just to close your eyes for a minute. And I just know the truth about each and every one of you, and actually everyone, that we all have the power to let go of whatever it is in this moment, of something that keeps us separated from our own good and from seeing the good in others. I know truly that there is this power of love within each and every one of us that ignites us, that we may ignite that love within us, that we can not only be a shining light on our own path that will guide us, that does guide us, to a greater understanding, a greater peace in this moment, a greater knowing that right where we are, the light, the love, the truth of God is. And as we kindle that flame of love within us, we allow that love that is the truth of our being not only to light our path, but to light the path of others with our compassion, our kindness, our forgiveness, and our understanding. Just take a moment and let that fill you, cleanse you, nurture you, as we open this eyes and know together that we're on this journey together. We live in gratitude and thankfulness. And I thank each and every one of you for being on my journey, because together we create this world that works for everyone. God bless you all, and thank you.